It's a really nice book in the back. Okay, one of the first things it talks about this week is language transfer. And I guess one of the first things that stood out to me is when you're talking about transfer, you're talking about like taking one thing and putting it somewhere else. Okay? Yeah. Like a transfer truck, it moves things.
Right.
So I guess what stuck out to me is like language transfer. It's kind of like using your L1 to help clarify and like build your L2 off of.
Right. And I think that, honestly, I think that helps the kids because with the L1, if we didn't let them use the L1, then I think that would affect them in a bad way.
Yeah, it's kind of like we were reading last week, like code switching is important to let the kids clarify. And what do they go back to when they code switch? They go back to L1.
Right.
Because they realize, okay, when I get to that spot in that sentence, like I don't know the proper word that goes there. I don't know the context. Right. I don't know the English word for this, so let me go back.
But I do know. Right. That's just their prior knowledge. We ask our kids now to use their prior knowledge.
That's true.
So it's their L1 is their prior knowledge.
And I've been thinking about, like, that even applies to, like, when you're teaching, like, content-specific vocabulary. Like, my kids in 4th grade know what a numerator and a denominator is, but you have to start off by telling the kids, okay, the top number is the numerator. So you, even when they're both, like, English words, you still use that concept. You take what they know to teach them what they don't know with.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where, like, you can back this up, you can see it in your room too, like when kids don't have a good basis for L1, there is no chance
not at all
that they can succeed at L2.
No.
And the book even pointed out this week that you can see evidence of transfer in every single aspect of language. Their pronunciation, their vocabulary, their grammar, their syntax, all of that stuff. And I guess what one of the things is that kind of strikes me is, like, how do we measure transfer?
Right.
How do you know, like, because I don't know their L1.
Exactly. So, like, you can't tell them to, hey, pull this, out of your L1 because you're not familiar with it.
Yeah, like, I can't take their brain back to, like, I can take my kids tomorrow and say, okay, yesterday we talked about common denominators. How can we get a number to a common denominator? And they can pull that back out of their mind. And if they can't remember, okay, remember, we talked about the denominator is the bottom. Then they're back on track.
Right.
But I don't know the Spanish word or the Chinese word for the bottom number.
Right.
To tell them. So I guess it's really hard for me to understand, like, how we can assess that effectively.
Right, and I guess that's where teachers just struggle in general and rely on that ELL teacher,
That makes a lot of sense. But it also makes a lot of sense that the L1 transfers, it is going to impact every bit of their language.
Right.
Because, like, if you don't know how to pronounce a word and you don't know, how to structure a word in a sentence, then you have no chance at knowing what's being spoken to you or what you're trying to produce. I think that's why kids code switch, is to make
sense of everything.
Make connections. And that kind of all goes back to multi-competence, like we talked before. Just because you're learning one language, it doesn't make you lose your L1.
Right. It's still there. You're just going to become more fluent in L2.
But that kind of, I also saw today, when I was looking over everything, that L1 attrition can occur when you're learning L2. So, in a way, I feel like L2 affects L1 too. I feel like it can go both ways.
Right.
Because if you're devoting all your time to L2, like, it would make sense to me, if I have an ELL student in my class, that for some weird reason is only allowed to speak English in a certain context.
Right.
And they're putting all their time and their effort into that their Spanish would get what you would call rusty.
That's understandable.
Like, if you don't use it...
If you don't use it, then it's going to, I guess, fade away almost.
Yeah. That old saying, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. I'd like to know if that really happens to your like your L1,
Right.
while you're learning L2. If you're putting more effort into your L2, what happens to L1?
Right. That's true. But I guess that's why they push to let the students use their L1 to use that prior knowledge and to help them understand the L2.
I can tell you